I will probably butcher this quote, but to paraphrase one of my heroes, Wynton Marsalis, he says that jazz is one of the best metaphors for democracy. That when you're in a combo, everybody has a voice. Everybody's voice is different. Everybody's voice is necessary. But we can't all just play whatever we want at the same time without listening to one another. And that it is by listening and then by responding in kind that we make the best music.
Good evening and welcome to Art After Dark, where you get to learn all about arts and culture in West Texas, and I get to live out my Dick Cavett fantasy. Good evening, my name is Randy Ham. I am the Executive Director for Odessa Arts, and today I am joined by Eric Baker.
You pronounced it correctly.
Yes.
It's
all
very
right.
tricky.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, Randy. Thanks for having me.
And so what is it? What do you do?
Not much. Not much around here. I'm really new to the art scene in Odessa. I've only been here about 18 years.
Only 18?
Only 18.
Yeah.
But I am so fortunate to get my hands into a little bit of everything out here in West Texas and in Odessa. What brought my wife and I out here was that I auditioned for and won a job with the now West Texas Symphony. So I am co-principal trumpet of the West Texas Symphony. And very quickly got involved in the educational scene out here and taught for many years at Odessa College.
Yes.
Now at UTPB, and am serving as the president of the West Texas Jazz Society.
The West Texas Jazz Society? There's jazz in West Texas?
Believe it or not. And there has been for nearly 60 years or more.
Nearly 60 years. You have a record of some sort with the Jazz Society.
We do. As far as we can tell, the West Texas Jazz Society maintains the longest running jazz party in the world.
So tell me, how do you describe a jazz party?
Right, because many people may be familiar with like a jazz festival.
Sure.
Think of New Orleans especially, one of the greatest ones of all time. A jazz party is interesting in that we bring in roughly 20 musicians from coast to coast. We've got them coming in from New York and California and everywhere in between. And they get up in groups of 5 or 6 usually at a time, and will perform for about 30 minutes, and then they'll shuffle, and you'll get a new group of 5 or 6 that will go up. So in the course of an evening, rather than experiencing 3 or 4 dedicated bands, you're going to get a collection of a completely new group of people every, like I said, half an hour or so. And then, of course, the next night you come, it'll be another completely different group. So 20 musicians, they shuffle up, and that's what a jazz party is. And it is pretty relaxed. Between sets, the patrons that come will get a chance to talk to the artists and get pictures taken with them and get to meet them. Many of the patrons that we get at the jazz party come from across the country and have been coming to jazz parties like what we do for many, many years. So they've built good friendships with the artists and with us here in West Texas. They love coming, and we're honored to keep it going for, like I said, nearly 60 years.
That is an amazing record, and congratulations.
Thanks.
Were you involved in any sort of jazz music before you moved here?
Mm-hmm.
And what got you into jazz?
That's a great question. I think back, and it probably was just exposure when I was a kid. I grew up in Texas, and the Texas band system usually starts about 6th grade. So in the 6th grade, I told my parents I wanted to be in band, and they asked what instrument I wanted to play, and I said drums, and there was a resounding no.
Absolutely not.
Nope. Choose again. So I chose the trumpet, and I'm so glad I did.
The trumpet's been known for very quiet music.
Yeah, it's just as loud, right?
Yeah.
What were they thinking? So I chose the trumpet, got into band, and of course through band in middle school and high school, there will be the jazz band. That's like an elective you can take. And so I had great jazz band directors through high school, played in the jazz band in college. And in college, music gave me an opportunity that I probably wouldn't have had otherwise, in that one of the years that I was in college, our jazz band got invited to go to Europe and perform through a few cities in Germany and Switzerland.
Oh, wow.
And I never would have had an opportunity or the money, frankly, to organize a trip for myself to go to Europe. But through music and by being a part of those ensembles in college, I was able to do that. So just a lot of great memories through jazz band. Love the music. I love the variety of what jazz is. It's such a hard word to define and to describe.
Yes.
Because now, more than 100 years past the creation of this thing called jazz, it has evolved and morphed and been assimilated into lots of different genres. So jazz kind of means a lot of things. And part of what we're trying to do in the Jazz Society is show people that jazz means a lot of things. And if you've ever been turned off by that word for some kind of a weird reason,
Sure.
there's definitely a kind of jazz, a genre that you will love, and it's for everyone. So
That's absolutely true. If you say that you don't like jazz, it's just because you didn't hear the jazz that you like yet.
that's right.
And I love the fact that jazz is one of the unique American art forms.
Mhm.
You know, it was created right here, and especially when we have conversations about art in general, you talk about the masters in Europe.
Mhm.
At not just in music, but in visual art and
That's right.
theater and everything. And when you come over here to the United States, because we are such a young country, we have not had the time to develop some of the culture that Europe has. And so I was very happy that one of those we have is jazz.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's such a great example of what we, I think, aspire America to be, this blending of a lot of different
Yeah.
cultures and a lot of different styles coming together to make something that is new and fresh and really brings people together. I will probably butcher this quote, but to paraphrase one of my heroes, Wynton Marsalis, he says that jazz is one of the best metaphors for democracy. That when you're in a combo, everybody has a voice. Everybody's voice is different. Everybody's voice is necessary, but we can't all just play whatever we want at the same time without listening to one another. And that it is by listening and then by responding in kind that we make the best music in this style of music, jazz. And I think that there's a lot to that, and I think about that a lot, about how jazz, and I would then also argue a lot of other art forms, can teach us a lot about democracy, about collaboration, about coming together and using our differences to make something that is better than what we could have done by ourselves.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's great. I'd never heard that quote before, and I know I've said this many, many times, but I'm going to say it on the record. It was you and the Jazz Society that got me excited about jazz,
Great.
and I love going to the jazz party every year. I love the jazz Christmas party that you
Mm-hmm.
put on over in Midland, and also just the educational outreach that the Jazz Society has done, not just with the elementary kids, which is great, but the different iterations of jazz bands that I've been privileged to listen to at OC and at UTPB,
Mm-hmm.
and even at some of the high schools, just seeing how having the Jazz Society here has really permeated the art and music scene in the Permian Basin.
Well, thank you. I hear from a lot of people when I tell them about the Jazz Society, they'll say, kind of like you were joking to start the podcast, but there's jazz here?
Yeah.
I didn't know. And people will say, well, y'all are just the best kept secret.
Yeah.
And I appreciate what they mean by that, but I don't want to be a secret.
Right.
I want to be in everyone's face about all the good work that we do. And I should mention that it is definitely a collaborative effort.
Sure.
The Jazz Society has a wonderful board of directors from a wide range of backgrounds and skill sets. And really, this latest iteration of the board has done some excellent work to raise the profile of the Jazz Society. You mentioned some educational outreach we do. We've got some fundraisers around Christmas time we do. And starting to do some more one-off events we do. We've got a bit of a speakeasy vibe coming that we're going to be trying out pretty soon. And people can find out about that on our website. And we are also doing regular jazz jam sessions. And that collaboration comes from some of our local city partners, restaurants
Yes.
and hotels that want to sponsor and have this music be more visible. So we're very grateful for the people who have partnered with us, and we're always looking for more people that say, hey, I love what you're doing, I want to help, or I want to get involved. And so that has been part of the way that we've been able to grow is through our community partners and people who are in the city of Odessa that want to see the arts thrive.
Well, it's not only the city of Odessa. You have a nice, strong presence in Midland as
We do.
well, and not just the people that come to the jazz party from across the country, but even from around West Texas.
That's right.
And that's wonderful. I have been fortunate to be on the music-friendly regional calls a lot, and jazz always comes up.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. It's a wonderful thing for us as a community to be able to hang our hat on. So thank you to the Jazz Society and the board and all of the volunteers, and especially the musicians that have done that. One of your educational programs is Bbop to hip hop.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
So what we have termed this thing, we give a concert series every year aimed primarily for middle school and high school kids, and we call it From Bebop to Hip Hop, A Musical Journey. And it's a bit of a, an ear-catching name. It sort of rhymes, and people may be wondering, wait a minute, is this a hip-hop concert? What are you doing here? Really, it's a turn of phrase that helps express the concept that we are trying to link the music that students listen to today back to the influence of blues and jazz. So we want to do a few things with this project. Number one, we want to expose students to music that they have never heard before, but we want to do it in a way that validates the music that they like to listen to. We want to make sure that we are not part of this proverbial old people poo-pooing
in my day,
the kids'
we had
music
real
today.
music.
Right.
Yeah.
Every generation has gone through that. We know that it's not really true. And so we don't want to perpetuate any of that. We want to make sure that when students come to the Jazz Society, that we are validating the music that they like and just showing them in an educational way the reason they like it is probably based on some lyrical or musical cues that were really invented or brought by the blues and jazz idioms that came before it. So, from bebop to hip hop is sort of this idea that back in the 50s and late 40s, we had this idea of bebop, kind of kicked off a lot of the jazz idioms that came after it, all the way up to today. So that's that, and that is done by a generous grant. And so we were able to bring in primarily artists from Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And these are all of the studio musicians that we've probably heard of but never had a chance to meet or see.
Right.
These musicians have played with some of the world's greatest musicians. They've performed on TV and film. And so, for example, we'll bring in a trumpet player and a trombone player who have played on every Pixar film.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I tell students, hey, by the way, all those trumpet solos you heard in Disney's Coco, that's Dan Fornero. He's right here playing on the stage. And they just go crazy.
Yeah.
Because, again, there's that connection. Something that they like, they can see the person who made that.
Yeah.
So we give them a lot of fun, a lot of energy. We give them an education. Between each song, I'll usually give a 2 to 3 minute little recap of what they're about to hear, kind of prep them for that. And we give them an opportunity to say, hey, there's a whole line of work in music and the arts that goes beyond just teaching it or being in a symphony orchestra. Yep. And I've done both of those things.
Yes.
And my life has been enriched by being a teacher and being in a symphony orchestra. But some students may want to go play in a studio.
Yeah.
And make some of that great music and work with composers like John Williams and Hans Zimmer. I mean, what a thrill.
Right.
So we bring that to our area once a year through the Bebop to Hip Hop project.
It is so fun, and I'm so happy that when you do that, you also do a public concert at the very end. And I remember the last one I got to go to, there were so many of the students that had been there earlier in the week came back and they brought their parents. Yeah. And then you guys bust out with Superstition at the end, and the audience goes wild. These kids love it. And I'm thinking, this is a Stevie Wonder song that's, nearly 50 years old, and they get it.
They love it. That's right. It's timeless.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely timeless. But you are not only a teacher and a musician with the symphony, plus I can't do this without bringing up some talented family members that you have.
I have surrounded myself with very talented people, yes.
Yes, you have. A beautiful wife, gorgeous, talented daughters as well. I often refer to you as the Captain Von Trapp of the Permian Basin.
I think.
Yes, take it as the compliment with which it is intended, and have performed as a duo with your wife and with your children as well. But one of the things you did a few years ago that I just have to bring up was Eric Baker on Chet Baker.
Oh, yeah.
That was an amazing one-man show about the history and life of Chet Baker, and it turned me into a fan.
Yeah.
What brought that on? What made you decide to do that?
Thank you. Well, before we get too far beyond the Von Trapp thing, you've hit the nose, or you've hit the nail on the head there. I'm mixing my metaphors. You've nailed it, because I have said, without my wife, without Emily Baker, I would have to turn into Captain Von Trapp, and I would say my kids would come in height order,
Right.
responding to whistle commands. They would be well behaved, but there would be no fun.
Right.
Thankfully, I married Emily, and she brings the fun and the excitement and the joy. And so without me, it would be chaos. But without her, there would be no fun. So I think we are a wonderful team together.
You absolutely are. And also, I think you do yourself a disservice, because there is a viral YouTube video of you calling your child from the car with your trumpet.
I can have some fun from time to time.
Yes.
I can have some fun. All right. Well, back to the Baker Plays Baker project.
Yes.
Thank you for saying that, because that was also a real joy of mine. And I learned so much about Chet, about his music, about my own playing, and my approach to how I would make music. For anyone who doesn't know, Chet Baker was a famous jazz trumpet player and singer, and his career was from the 1950s on up until he died tragically in the early 80s. And his life was just, kind of that cliched, tortured artist approach, where he was a genius in his own right, but couldn't really always escape some of his demons, especially addiction, and struggled to kind of find his place in the world. In the United States, honestly, he was sort of polarizing at times in the jazz community, whereas in Europe and beyond, he was very much loved and celebrated, and so spent a lot of his time there. But the Jazz Society was looking for opportunities to fulfill our mission, which is the promotion of jazz in our community. And so we thought, let's do a concert, but let's kind of highlight some of our local musicians. And so I was graciously asked to do it, along with a few other jazz musicians in the area, drums, bass, keys. And we were able to put together this wacky scheme of mine to just feature the music of Chet Baker. His voice seems to sit in a similar range as mine, so I could do some of the singing and some of the playing. And just like we do for Bbop to hip hop, I guess this is the educator in me.
Yes.
I can't stop teaching people things. We decided to frame each song as to kind of what was going on in Chet's life during the time.
Yeah.
So we started a little bit earlier in his career with some of his big breakout hits, and later, as some of the music would change and he became, again, just troubled and led into his untimely death, got into what was really going on, and it helped shape, I think, the approach to understand what he was improvising and how he was playing and recording. And it was very well received and a beautiful project. And I don't know, maybe someday we'll have to dust it off.
I absolutely encourage you to do that.
Thanks.
Because it was, I went out and found all of Chet Baker's music after watching that. And so it's one of my favorite things to do is go home and pull out a Chet Baker LP at the end of the evening, and just
Perfect for that.
It really is. And it was a lot of fun to watch as well.
Wonderful.
But you have also, because Eric Baker is the original multi-hyphenate of the Permian Basin, gone viral with your own little web series, Trumpets Mic'd Up.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
So I think that was just a random summer day. It was probably about a year ago at this point. And I was either watching baseball or maybe just kind of thumbing through my algorithm and whatever feed I happened to be on. And I came across some funny content where baseball players will be mic'd up. And the sports do this all the time. They'll do this with football and hockey. And they'll mic up a few players, and kind of you get a little idea of what they're talking about out on the field. And I kind of just chuckled to myself and thought, what if you did that in the orchestra? It's a very niche audience, but some people might find that kind of interesting. So at the first rehearsal of the West Texas Symphony last season, I brought that to my trumpet friends, and I said, hey guys, I got this harebrained scheme, but I got a couple of microphones, and I got my GoPro here, but could we just film the rehearsal? And they somewhat begrudgingly said yes. and it didn't take long before just the natural banter of the musicians in the orchestra started to kind of come alive. And trumpet players have a bit of a reputation of being arrogant or egotistical, and I don't think I can guarantee you that we may try to play that up from time to time for the jokes, but my good friend Ben, my good friend John, these guys are really, really wonderful, very funny, and we can kind of poke fun at ourselves. So we posted a few of these little clips and immediately got a lot of attention. People really kind of found this. And again, it was kind of that orchestral or maybe trumpet student demographic that was really liking it. And we made a few rules. We would never poke fun at anybody else or any other section in the symphony. Any jokes that would be at our own expense.
Sure.
And just kind of tease a little bit about what happens in orchestra. So that has been going quite well. We just dropped the first episode of season 9 today.
Season 9?
The seasons are really pretty much made up, but
Sure.
anytime we would get together for a new rehearsal series, that's a new season. Because
Perfect.
we're in different clothes,
Right, yeah.
and the angle
Yeah.
might be a little different, so we had to somehow organize that. But season 9 dropped today, and so we'll see how that does.
Well, it's a lot of fun to watch, and
Thanks.
it is a nice little peek behind the curtain
Yeah.
of what it looks like to be in a symphony.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool. You do a really good job of balancing your performance career also with your teaching career,
Mhm.
and that's really been a big part of your life here in West Texas. Can you talk a little bit about what the importance of specifically a music education means to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been kind of wrestling with that and thinking through that a lot because I have, like I said, I went through the Texas music education system, and if people are from Texas, they may know what I'm talking about. It's a system, and it's quite good. And now my oldest daughter is starting to go through that.
Yeah.
She's working on all-region choir, all-state choir things, and she's really pursuing music. I don't know if it will be a career, but certainly as a hobby and as something that will make her better as a human. And she and I were talking, and we talked about people who, let's just take the all-state process. Texas all-state bands, orchestras, choirs, jazz bands, mariachi, they're just some of the greatest young people you'll ever meet. And they're driven, and they work hard, and they achieve high levels of music. But I know several who were multiple-year all-state musicians who, after they left high school, never performed again.
Yeah.
They got burned out, or they had a bad taste, or it was too competitive, or something didn't lock in to make them really love music for the rest of their lives. And there are other people who didn't really ever achieve the same honors or awards, but have a love for music and do it even at an amateur level forever. They play piano at their local church, or they play flute in the community band, or they help put together a July 4th band in their city. This is, in my opinion, a successful music education. A successful music education does not only produce the next great Yo-Yo Ma or Wynton Marsalis or Chet Baker. It makes the most people it can fall in love with music so that when those people grow up, they, like I said, they may do it themselves at an amateur level or even a semi-pro or professional level, but they will get their friends involved, or they'll buy tickets. They'll support their local symphony, or they'll support their local jazz society or dance troupe or whatever you want to do in the arts. But arts education is more than just making the next great dancer or painter.
Right.
It's about making sure that as many community members, as many humans as we can understand that there is value in creation, whether or not it ever sells for millions of dollars. There's value in exploration and curiosity, in bravery and courage. These are all wonderful traits that I think there's a lot of people in our communities that desire that. They talk about, well, I'm scared to speak in public, or I could never raise my hand and ask a question at my child's PTA meeting. I just listen and I just try to, scoot out the back.
Yep.
And I think that deep down, some of those people would value a sense of courage. And not everyone has to be super extroverted. It's not really about that,
No.
but it's about, feeling that bravery and courage to say, hey, because my jazz band director forced me to play a solo that I had to improvise in front of everyone in 7th grade, because I was terrified of that and got over it and learned how to deal with that, I can now apply that skill set in a meeting. I can do a production for my company. I can do a presentation. A lot of wonderful opportunities that the arts in general, and specifically music, that they teach you.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say, I was a theater kid. I
Mm-hmm.
did band, but theater was my passion.
Yeah.
And the only problem was I was a really crappy actor. But I did learn how to speak in front of people, and I
Yes.
learned diction, and I learned how to put a wardrobe together and have that confidence when you walk into the room, and nobody plays Randy Ham as well as Randy Ham.
Right.
So that's the only role I ever need to play. But that education brought me to this place.
Yeah.
And it's great to be able to tell students you don't have to go to Carnegie Hall.
No.
You can take that music education and apply it to any number of industries. And so many companies really value creative thinking, which an arts education will drill into you.
Absolutely. And, you also learn things like you have to be on time.
Yeah.
The bus leaves at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Be on time. The concert starts at 8. Be on time. The call time for actors is whatever. There's a sound check involved. There's learning your lines. There's the idea of hard work. It is difficult to play the oboe. It's hard. And when students dig into that and lean into the challenge, whether or not they make some arbitrary criteria like the all-state band or all-region or something, those are wonderful. Let's chase those.
Yes.
But whether or not you do it, if you're diligent to practice, you become a better player whether you make it or not.
Right.
And that idea of I'm all about empowering others. And so what I love to see is a young student who looks at the all-state music and their eyes get wide.
Yeah.
And they've never seen so many notes all on one page before. And they're like, you want me to play this? This is crazy. And you're like, it is crazy right now. But this is August you. We're talking about December you. And you're going to be a different person in December if you'll follow these steps. And so you give them a little bit that they can do, and you give them a little bit they can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And that look in their eyes when they finally do get that line of music that they didn't think they could get, that a few weeks before was just this scary, terrifying thing. When they get it, all of a sudden you've given them a little taste of agency.
Yeah.
And you've given them this thing that like, hey, you can do things that you think you can't. Mm-hmm. Like as a father, as a teacher, that's where I get the most excited. Showing people that they can do the things they didn't think they could do. It's super exciting. So.
It is. It's wonderful when it clicks.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it clicks. It's so wonderful. And to see it in someone else is even better, because if you're fortunate enough to witness that and you see it in their face.
That's right.
You're like, I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives them such confidence, and theater does the same.
Yeah.
My girls have all done, youth productions in theater, and they still speak very fondly of the experience, that it was hard work, but it was worth it. They made friends. They learned how to work with one another. Again, all those soft skills that businesses are looking for, because we're in an age where information is a lot easier to get.
Yeah.
I can find the answer to, a logical problem or a linear equation. But the idea of how do I teach someone to present themselves well in a meeting?
Yeah.
That's tough.
It is.
But you can learn a lot of those skills through group exercises. And I would say that athletics also teaches a lot of the same skills.
Sure.
Some people are very athletically gifted, and they just say, music's not my thing. But you can learn a lot of those same skills through athletics.
Well, and it's for let's try that again. That was very interesting that you brought up athletics as well, because athletics and music can go hand in hand, and there are lots of athletes that will take music classes to help them with retention, with discipline, with movement. Like, there are so many athletes that take dance class in order to be able to move on the field. And so for so many years, especially as band kids, when we had to play at a football game, it was still like, those are the jocks and we're the nerds, and we stayed in our own corners. But there's actually a language that we share between the two, and it's not as disparate as we like to think that it is.
Oh, not at all. And in fact, just a few months ago, a little viral clip kept coming across my feed of Jason Kelsey, who retired from his football career. And in his retirement speech, made a long portion of that dedicated to his band director in high
Yes.
school, coincidentally named Mr. Baker, which I thought was pretty cool. But he says, "Oh yeah, Mr. Baker taught us so many things that I use in the NFL, so many skills, so many ways of thinking." And gave a very glowing review of his time. And I think from what I've seen, we'll still occasionally go visit his high school and bring his Barry sax and play in the jazz band.
He played Barry sax?
Played Barry sax
I
in the
played
jazz
Barry
band.
sax.
Oh, there you
Oh
go.
my God, that's
Yeah.
so cool.
Well, it was, a lot of my music education friends were sharing that because it's a great way to combat this narrative that you have to be one or the other.
Right.
You can find value in a lot of things, and we would encourage young people to be curious and to try athletics and to try band and choir, dance and theater. But you can find your passion and your skills in a myriad of ways. So,
Absolutely. Well, the Jazz Society is about to celebrate 60 years of the Jazz Party in just, 2 years?
Yeah, 2026 will be our 60th year.
2026. So what does the next 60 years of the Jazz Society look like?
Good question. Well, continuing to build that audience, continuing to share this music. I chuckle a little bit because we talk a lot in classical music and in jazz about the dying audiences.
Yeah.
50 years ago, the audiences were going to be dead in 10 years.
Yes.
But they're still here.
Yes.
And what I think is some people find their way into jazz and classical music as they age.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's just parts of your life where you're looking for different things at different times. And so we're going to continue to make sure that young people know about what we're doing. We're going to continue to keep the jazz party going. We're going to keep that right here in Odessa where it began. In fact, I think where we are right now, Randy, just a few blocks away, is where the jazz party started.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, at the top of the Lincoln Hotel back in 1967.
Man.
And so we're just a few blocks from where it began. But we're going to keep that going. We want to explore a little bit. We want to continue to do music education. We're going to do more jazz jam sessions. We have found that's a wonderful way to bring our community together around this music in a very safe kind of a way.
Sure.
It's easy to just, go grab your trumpet and go down to a restaurant on a Sunday afternoon and play a song with your friends. So we want to continue to do that. And then what we're really looking forward to is bringing in artists that maybe haven't made their way out to West Texas yet.
Yeah.
It can be difficult out here in West Texas. It's a very big part of the country, and it can be difficult for our students, especially, to travel all the way out to a place like New York or Los Angeles. So can we continue to bring those people in to give our students the experience, but without the expense? And so those are some of the things that we're thinking of for the next generation of the Jazz Society.
Well, that's very exciting, and it speaks to something that we always talk about, Eric, and that's we have really great prosperity here in the Permian Basin, but we also have a lot of people that live below the poverty line, and there are so many people that will probably never travel outside of the state of Texas in their entire lives.
That's right.
And so what can we do as artists to be able to bring the world here so that you understand that there's something beyond the dirt, that's beyond the football, beyond the oil well, and give them that worldview that some of the rest of us have been fortunate enough to be able to travel out and meet people from other places. So I'm very excited that you're doing that, and that the Jazz Society sees that need and is looking for ways to fill that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah. If you're out there and this is you hearing about jazz in Odessa for the first time, I highly encourage you to go to the Jazz Party. It is one of the highlights of the year. Eric, you and your group do such a wonderful, wonderful job. You do such good work with the Symphony, but most of all, as a husband and father to those amazing women in your life
Thank you.
who are so phenomenally talented. If you didn't know, I'm president of the Emily Baker fan club. And she is amazing.
Member number 1. I think
Yes.
that's right.
But I count many, many others amongst the club members. And we are so fortunate to have you in West Texas. So thank you for being here tonight.
Truly my pleasure. Thanks, Randy.
Yes. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time on Art After Dark.
Cheers, my friend.